Hello and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2022-23 season. My name is Dan and it's time for our Game Week 36 tier list video. 3 game weeks left, guys. Let's make some moves. If you do enjoy this one, please do drop a like, do subscribe if you're new around here. Let's begin the tier list. As always, we're going to go through the top 30 most popular transferred in players at time of recording. I'm recording this before the Monday games as well. So let's see what we can do. Let's start off with the 30th most popular transfer in, working our way up all the way to the most popular one and put them in these categories. So our 30th most popular transfer of the week is Martinelli, who I'm going to put straight in optional, actually. I actually feel like Martinelli was unlucky not to get a little bit more in terms of FPL returns in that Newcastle game. He looked pretty sharp and it's good to see him back in that Arsenal team. He's had his rest and I feel like he is going to continue now in the Arsenal team for the remainder of the season, hopefully playing all of the remaining games. There's only 3 of them, so not too many. But if you are trying to look for players outside of the double game week players, Martinelli would certainly be one of the players who I'd be more keen to buy. I'm going to put Totti in here as well, just because he is a nice cheap defender. If you're just looking to downgrade one of your defenders to a super cheap option, I feel like Totti is reasonably nailed on in this Wolves team at the moment, who do seem to be doing really well at home at the moment. So they have got a home game left, so let's see if they can maybe keep a clean sheet in that one. He's just a good bench option more than anything, though. Not really a player I'd be looking to start, so you could even go for someone slightly cheaper than him if you wanted to. Bruno Fernandes, I'm going to put in good transfer, but no better than that for this game week. I feel like he could do well against Wolves in this upcoming game week, but Manchester United, a bit of a dip in form. Last game in particular, really disappointed against West Ham. I was certainly disappointed as a triple Man United owner, but we've got that double game week coming up, which looks really, really nice in game week 37, so I don't think it's too much of a harm, really, to get Fernandes in one game week only early against Wolves at home. It's actually a pretty decent fixture. Wolves are chalk and cheese, whether they're playing home and away. They're completely different teams, seemingly, so I think he's a good transfer. Dallo, I'm going to put in the avoid category just because we did see him rotated last game, and I'm not sure he's 100% nailed on. I think I would be looking to spend a little bit more money, 0.3 million extra, on Luke Shaw if I wanted to go in on the Manchester United defence, and I wouldn't mind going for David De Gea either. I know he did have a bit of a howler, a bit of a blunder against West Ham, but in general, he's usually quite a good shot stopper in most of the senses. Obviously, has the occasional dip in form, but hey, look, I think De Gea is fine. I think Shaw is fine. Dallo, I would be thinking, is maybe a bit too risky for these final few games. John Stones, I feel like you could get him if you wanted to, but he's definitely not a must-buy or anything like that. So, yeah, I guess you could get him if you wanted to. Maybe there's some other defenders we'd be looking at to get this game week. And in general, you know, defenders just aren't really working too well at the moment. And Man City in particular, they just can't seem to keep a clean sheet. Yes, they kept one the other week, but, you know, when you're spending this amount of money for a player who's not got an insane amount of goal threat, you do hope that there's going to be some clean sheets involved there. So Stones is definitely an option, but he's definitely not a player who I'd be desperate to get this week. Maybe if you are really wanting that Man City defender, maybe next week would be a better time to go in on him. But I think he's fine to buy this week. In fact, maybe I'm being a little bit harsh. Let's put him into good transfer, because I do understand why people would want to go for Man City defenders right now. And John Stones, hopefully, is going to be nailed on for the rest of the season now with that rest that's just happened there. He's certainly first choice in this Man City team. Almiron, I'm also going to put in the avoid category. I know people are looking to go in on Newcastle players with their double game week in Game Week 36. However, I do worry a little bit about Almiron and how much game time he's actually going to be getting. Is he the preferred player in the front 3 at Newcastle at the moment? I'm not actually sure that's the case. So, yeah, he's not going to be getting you enough minutes, I don't think, to be worth going for the transfer there. And there's actually another Newcastle midfielder who I do slightly prefer, who we will be speaking about later on in this video. De Bruyne, another player who is a little bit risky, but he has been playing recently. I think with the amount of fixtures that Man City have at the moment, maybe it's going to be a little bit of rotation for De Bruyne here and there, but we know he's a high upside player. We've got that double game week next week as well. We've got a good fixture in Game Week 36, so let's put him in good transfer alongside Fernandes there as well. Botman, I'm not sure about this one, if I'm honest. I'm actually possibly even going to put Botman in the avoid category. I know he will be a good pick, kind of, for this game week, but when we're thinking about the best Newcastle players to buy, and I'm sure a lot of us are looking to triple up on Newcastle for their double game week this week, would Botman be part of that triple up? I'm not sure if he even makes my top 5 favourite Newcastle players to go for at the moment. So he's taken up a valuable Newcastle slot. If he's the only Newcastle player you can get to this week, then I guess that's fair enough. You know, if money is tight, then maybe he is an option for you for some people. But Yeah, he would not be first choice Newcastle player to buy. There's a lot of other players I prefer to go for right now. So we're going to put him in optional. I'm going to put Harry Kane in. I feel like he needs to be in at least good transfer. I know he doesn't have any double game weeks, but he's just been so reliable. I'm certainly regretting selling Harry Kane. I did kind of need to do it to get Trent into my team. But aside from that, Harry Kane has just been so good recently. And he'd be a really nice player to own for the final few game weeks this season, wouldn't he? So I feel like he has to go in. I'm going to put him in a good transfer just because he might be kind of difficult to get to. But if you can get to Kane easily, then I probably would really consider doing it. Maybe even ahead of some of the double game week players, genuinely. As a bit of a boring transfer, I guess somewhere between avoid and optional. I feel like there's just better players to go for right now in the midfield position. If you want single game week midfielders, then you've got your Arsenal boys there to kind of go for as well, and then we've got the likes of Man United, Man City, Brighton, Newcastle, who will have double game weeks as well. Where does Eze fit in all of this? I'm not really sure, to be honest, so he's going to have to go in the avoid category. Ben White ahead of the Arsenal game, the Brighton game, sorry. Ben White plays for Arsenal, but yeah, ahead of the Brighton game, I'm really not too convinced, but I said the same thing about the Newcastle game. I thought Arsenal would concede in that game. They didn't. I think Arsenal are going to concede again against Brighton, but who knows if that's actually going to happen or not. Strange things happen in football, and Arsenal are a good team, but I still am not convinced by their defence. So in terms of their defenders, I'm still going to put them in the avoid category. Steele, I think, is optional just because he is so cheap and a really easy way to get in on the Brighton defence. They've got 2 double game weeks back to back. We think Steele is going to be pretty much nailed on for the rest of the season now for Brighton, so that's definitely good. Maybe that moves him into a good, kind of a good transfer. But what I am a little bit worried about with Brighton is the fact that they play 2 away games against Newcastle and Arsenal. And Newcastle and Arsenal, 2 teams that have been scoring a lot of goals recently. So I know he's got a double game week, but are some Brighton defenders maybe slight double game week traps? If you already have them, fair enough. You have them, you play them, absolutely, for sure, 100%, and just play the odds, play your chances. But going into this game week, I think there will be a lot of single game week players who outscore some of the Brighton defenders just because it's 2 very tough games for Brighton. And I'll put kind of Lewis Dunk in the same kind of category there. Yes, great that he's a double game week defender, but, are we realistically going to get, any more than, some of the single game week defenders? You expect Brighton to concede in both games. Dunk is not going to offer you too much in terms of attack. So I'm actually going to put him below Botman because Botman has slightly easier fixtures and is also a little bit cheaper. Steele goes ahead a little bit because Steele, I think, is a bit of an easier transfer to make if you're trying to go for some more Brighton players, and he makes saves as well. So you are going to get some save points in some of the more difficult attacking games. So I can see Steele, even conceding goals in each game, you can still see him getting a 6 or 7 pointer during this game week just by virtue of making saves, whereas Lewis Dunk doesn't quite have that same opportunity. So yeah, Steele I do prefer to Dunk, but again, they're both optional. I wouldn't really put them any higher than that despite that the double game week. Mahrez, yeah, he's a really interesting differential, but again, he's going to have to go in the optional category. The rotation risk is the thing that bothers me the most about Mahrez. He has been playing a decent amount of games recently, though, so maybe he's going to stick around, but Foden is looming. We've got Alvarez who can play on the wing as well. Grealish is going to have to come back into this team at some point. It's very difficult to say, Bernardo Silva as well, haven't even mentioned him. It's difficult to say who is going to be the starting Man City wingers for these final games where there's so much going on in a short period of time. Man City's still in pole position to win the league, so I think they can afford to rotate and prioritise the Champions League a little bit at the moment, and maybe Mahrez is going to be sacrificed because of that. Welbeck, super risky, and I'm not comfortable putting him any higher than optional. In fact, I would even consider putting him in avoid. Yes, he's got a double game week, but how many minutes is he going to get in that double game week? I'm not really sure, to be honest. I'm expecting Ferguson to come back very soon. We obviously know Enciso has been playing the odd game as striker. We've got Dennis Undav as well. So this is 4 strikers, basically, who can play up front for Brighton at the moment. So which one is going to be the starting one? Which one's going to be the main one? Are they all going to be easing into each other's minutes? I think they will, to be fair, particularly with so many games coming up. So might even drop Welbeck into the avoid category. But I feel like because there is a little bit of upside here, decent upside for Welbeck, that does tempt me to put him in optional. but super risky for those minutes in particular. Nick Pope, very expensive for a goalkeeper, but yeah, maybe you could go for him. Just Newcastle are just conceding goals at the moment, so I'm not really a huge fan. Again, I'm not too keen on some of these Newcastle defensive assets going into this double game week. I know they've got Leeds first, which could be a clean sheet there, but second game against Brighton, that's a difficult one for Newcastle defenders. I'm going to put him kind of in and around some of these players, I guess. Would he make a couple of saves potentially against Brighton? But I'm not massively convinced by spending this much money on a goalkeeper, really. With one double game week left, it's not a particularly good double game week. You know, it's an okay one, don't get me wrong, but it's not a particularly good game week for a defence that is conceding goals at the moment. So let's put him in optional, but no higher. We are filling up the optional at the moment, aren't we, guys? Luke Shaw, really unlucky with that goal conceded in the last game. I think Manchester United are still looking pretty good for clean sheets at the moment. We've got a double game week next up as well. So I'm more than happy to put Manchester United defenders who are seemingly nailed on up in the good transfer category. I'm going to probably put him above Fernandes as well. I think he's more of a priority move than Fernandes, to be fair, to get involved in that Manchester United defence. Kind of like them. Got a really nice double game week next week and a decent fixture against Wolves at home this week. So, yeah, I think clean sheets are very much on the cards. So, yeah, I'm going to put him in good transfer. Trippier, if you don't already have him, then I would probably strongly consider buying him just because he is going to be a dangerous player to not own. If Trippier goes off this game week, he gets attacking returns, even if there is no clean sheets, then it could be pretty good. Again, the Leeds game, I think there's potential clean sheets there, but we're looking for attacking returns from Trippier. It hasn't really happened too much recently, but I still feel like he is a good transfer. So I'm going to put him in a similar area to Luke Shaw. If you don't have Trippier for this game week, I know he's not been doing very well recently, but it is a really dangerous player to be without. You know, could really do some damage to you. But again, that's going to depend on your ethos going into these final few game weeks. Kaldu Mitoma, I'm going to put in great transfer straight up. Unlucky not to get more FPL returns recently. I think he's been playing really quite well, actually. He's had a rest recently as well. So, yeah, he should be good going forward. He's a player I don't own that I'm very jealous of owner. So I'll put him there. Fabian Schär, I'm going to put not as high as Trippier, but again, a player with a decent amount of attacking ability. Potential clean sheet against Leeds United there. Let's see what happens. I'm not super confident about it, but I still think he's a fairly decent transfer to go for. Despite the fact he had a -2 score in last game week, still think he's not such a bad player. Joe Linton, also going to put him in a good transfer. And if you can't go for the Newcastle forwards this game week, Joe Linton would be the player I would be strongly looking at. I'll put him alongside Trippier there. Even if it's for a one-week punt, Joe Linton is actually generating a lot of XG at the moment. He is scoring the odd goal here and there. And we're expecting when Longstaff is back, which could be very, very soon, Joe Linton is going to move back up to the left wing position. And if he's playing in the left wing position, he's going to be more advanced, you know, having more opportunity to create and score goals as well. And even when he's in midfield, he's doing pretty well there as well. So I think Joe Linton is one of the most underrated players, actually, for this game week. And he could be a really nice differential for a lot of you guys to go for. So I'm going to put Joe Linton in the good transfer category. If you've got a Newcastle slot you want to use up, you kind of already happy with the rest of your Newcastle players that you own, why not Joe Linton? I kind of like this one. Why not? Next up, Solly March. I'm going to put him alongside Kaldu Mitoma in a great transfer. I don't think he's an absolute must-buy because, yeah, I just don't think there is any absolute must-buys this game week, to be honest. But I think March would be pretty much as close as you can get to a must-buy. You know, best attacking numbers for any Brighton player at the moment. If you are looking to capitalise on Brighton at the moment, Solly March is you know, the best player to buy. We've got 4 games in 2 game weeks. It's pretty obvious, right? It's a pretty obvious transfer if you don't have him already, and you do have that Brighton slot. I would even consider moving McAllister to March, potentially there as well. Shall we put him in must-buy? You know what? The fact that I've just said that I'd swap McAllister for him, I probably would put him in must-buy. Yeah, he's a pretty important player to have. I really do think he's a pretty important player to have. Rashford up next. I'm going to put him higher than Fernandes. I think he's a better player to own than Fernandes. Probably higher than Luke Shaw as well. I would like to see him back in the striker position for these final few games, to be fair. But yeah, let's put him here. Again, this Wolves game is a real opportunity for your Manchester United players. So I think he is a good transfer. Maybe even a great transfer, to be fair. You can't go too wrong with a 7.3 million midfielder, can you? Next up, Trent Alexander-Arnold, who I'm going to controversially put not that high, because the problem with Trent is, when do you play him? Like, a lot of us have already got Newcastle defenders, Brighton defenders. that's kind of takes care of this game week. A lot of people will be benching Trent this game week. I know they will. I know a lot of people will be. I don't think I will personally, so I'm not going to put him any lower than good transfer. But if you haven't already bought Trent, have you maybe missed the boat on that one? Possibly. There's not long left, really. Mo Salah, I'm going to put in good transfer, slightly below Harry Kane. Salah may be lucky to get some of his FPL returns recently, but he's a player who has been scoring FPL points, and that's what matters at the end of the day. And, you know, he's a player that if you don't own, you are going to be punished for it. And believe me, I know that firsthand as someone who hasn't owned Salah for the last few game weeks. He's been absolutely crushing my rank recently. So for that reason alone, maybe he's a good player to buy. But if you are, you know, trying to chase a little bit, you're trying to boost your rank, you're trying to go for something a little bit different, then I can see a reason to not go for Salah right now, particularly with all of these double game week players on offer at the moment. Maybe that's an opportunity to kind of chase the upside a little bit more somewhere else. McAllister, I don't think it's a particularly bad transfer, but not a particularly good one either. And if I'm going for a midfielder in my fantasy team, it's going to be March and Mitoma. It's not going to be McAllister from Brighton. So I guess he's optional. If you get a penalty from him, everything is going to look very, very good indeed. But he's been playing deeper recently, which is not ideal for McAllister owners. I feel like I will put him somewhere around here. He is an option. If you get a penalty, you get a lucky penalty, then amazing. That's going to be really, really nice. And as a McAllister owner, I'm not really planning on selling him, to be fair. But I don't think it's a must-buy. I don't. You know, if you're looking for Brighton midfielders, McAllister is just not the one you go for. Purvis Estupiñán, yeah, again, difficult fixtures defensively, but what Purvis offers is attacking threat. And for that reason, I'm going to put him up in the good transfer category, all the way up here next to some of these other guys. Let's put him... I'm going to put him actually slightly ahead of Trippier, I think. Just because he has, I think, slightly better attacking prospects than Trippier at the moment, which is something I didn't think I'd say previously. Next up, we have got Ødegaard, and this is a difficult one to place. Where would I put Ødegaard? I guess alongside Martinelli. Would I put him slightly ahead of Martinelli, potentially? I think the two of them have to go in as similar kind of category. I know Ødegaard has scored 3 goals in 2 games now, but he has been making a mockery of XG. He's been scoring some wonder goals. You wonder how sustainable that is, I guess. But he's still a reasonably good player to have in your team to own going forward. I don't absolutely love this Brighton fixture for Arsenal. I don't love it, but I guess it's okay. I said the same thing about Newcastle, though, so who knows? It's an option, at least. I'm not going to put him any lower than that. And finally, guys, we've got 2 more Newcastle forwards, and it's really difficult to say where to put them, but maybe having one of them is probably a must-buy. I'll put it that way. So I guess we'll start off with Isak. Let's put Isak in the must-buy category. I'm going to put him actually just behind Solly March, because there's only one double game week to come, and you know, I don't think you have to buy Isak. You could also go for Wilson, so I'm just going to put them both in at the same time here. I'm going to put Wilson slightly ahead of Isak there. I'm not saying both of these are must-buys. I'm trying to say more like having one of these is probably a must-buy. Now, I'm edging towards Wilson, expecting him to be on penalties for whether he's on the pitch. He was kind of taken off a little bit earlier in the game against Arsenal, so a little bit of rest there. Maybe there is an intention to play him for both games in the double game week. We could say Isak again in left wing and Wilson through the middle, which is going to be advantage Wilson. And Wilson is just slightly more dangerous than Isak in general, but definitely more dangerous than Isak when on the pitch. If both of these guys are on the pitch, you want Wilson. If both of them are getting similar amount of minutes, you want Wilson. So I'm edging towards Wilson, but they're both fantastic picks. I don't want to sit here and say one is fantastic, the other is not. Isak has higher expected minutes over the double game week, but Wilson will make better use of the minutes that he does play. And in a double game week, where you do get more minutes from any player, you know, we're expecting to see more than 90 minutes from Wilson over a double game week, right? If that is the case, then you want him, because Wilson for 90 minutes is fantastic. If you can get that from him in a single game week, that's fantastic. He is just so reliable when he's on the pitch. So yeah, must buy there for me for the double game week against Leeds. Particularly, we're hoping that Newcastle could score a couple of goals, and you're going to want the likes of Wilson and Isak there for that kind of exact role. We've got Trippier and Joelinton in good transfers as well. I think those would be really nice picks. But genuinely, Wilson, Isak, Trippier is probably my favourite Newcastle triple up, if that's possible for you. Joelinton, a bit of an outside shot there if you want to go for something different as well. The Brighton boys are also really important. I feel like just for this game week, we want to focus on Brighton players, Newcastle players. Anything outside of that can potentially... you can potentially wait a little bit. You don't have to make moves for anyone outside of those teams unless you're missing someone who is just a really, really key player maybe. But yeah, these kind of 5 players at the top would be my primary transfer targets if I didn't have them already. March, Wilson, one of Wilson or Isak at the least, Mittelmar and Rashford. But if you can do the double up on the Newcastle attack, that could be really, really good as well. And guys, that is the tier list. Let me know what you think about the placement of some of these players, or if there's any players who are missing as well. Where should they go? Where would you like me to place them as well? Let me know in the comments. Let me know kind of what you feel about some of the other players as well. Maybe some differentials in there. Thanks so much for watching, guys. If you do enjoy this one, please do leave a like, do subscribe as well, of course. Yeah, a few more videos this entire season. We're into the last month, the last few game weeks. Let's power through and see what we can do. But yeah, really appreciate you guys. See you on the next video tomorrow. Until then, I'll see you later, mates. Bye-bye.